Hi, today's video we're going to be taking a quick look at some LHTML elements that are built into Hoopless. So let's start by taking a look at an if statement. So if statements are they're a type of tag that allows for conditional logic to be checked. And it's meant to extend the ability to do logical operations to anyone on the team. It's not meant to house complex nested logic. It probably wouldn't be the most maintainable code if there was a lot of these nested, but just for simple one-offs, it provides the ability for anyone on the team to do some kind of logical comparison. So an example of that, which you might use on your site, is whether it says good morning, good day, or good evening. And here's an example of how we might do that. Let me pull that up a little bit further. So we could do that either by passing in attributes to that element in this example and this example, or we can do that as passing in child arg elements to provide that. The benefit of doing it as an attribute is that it's relatively easy and small. The downside to that is that it's hard to maintain when there's a lot of attributes and hard to read when there's a lot of attributes. So in the case of, like, let's say you had 5 different attributes there, maybe you want to consider passing them in as arguments just so you can see them right across the board really easily. The benefit of doing them as arguments is you get to specify the type. So you may not need to do this for all your arguments, but especially with like a Boolean or an int, you might want to specify that. So here we're just specifying strings, but in the case of like a Boolean, you could specify, you could say true here and say bool, and when it gets passed to the actual backend, it would be a Boolean as true. So here is the current date of the server and time. So based on that, we see that it's a good evening, which is indeed correct. Another type of comparison we can do is for the day of week. And we could check to see if it's a Tuesday or a Friday and so forth. So here we have 2 different messages based on the day of the week. And when we click results, we'll see that we've come during a weekend sale, which is indeed correct because it is the weekend according to the server. We also have the example, or we also have the option of passing in a date as a condition. So we could check to see if it is December 3rd. And if it is, then we can get free shipping for a limited time. Else, we get regular shipping rates. So this is really nice for timely content. Like a front end user might want to be like, oh, I want to put a message up, but only for a little bit amount of time and so forth. And rather than having the back end user be like the gatekeeper of that ability, now we've extended that ability to that front end curator and helped empower them. So here we can see that when we run, that example, we see that regular rates do apply. So our last example is going to be a date time. And with that example, we're checking to see if it's December 4th at a special time. And if it is, then you get a free mouse pad. If it's not, then you get a free pen. and else is just a way of passing through an alternative if it's not true. So when we click that, we see that we get a free pen because um, because the um, the offer does not apply to us. So as another example, we can look at the variables. So within the variables, um, the the variable tag allows you to access public properties from parent custom elements, and that could be really powerful when you have like a user block or a group block to try to get like attributes from them and use them within it. So here we're trying to get the first name and last name for user profile custom element. And here we're specifying the tag, which means that we're going to look for an immediate parent example tag. If this wasn't an example tag, for example, and this was, it would look here instead of here. But since it is, it will search the user profile. And if we look at that on the back end, so right here, this is a user profile. As you can see, there's a public property for first name and public property for last name. So those are the ones we should be accessing when we run it. And for this right here, the group, we should be accessing the group profile custom element public properties. And we can see here, we'd be accessing that. So let's see what happens when we actually run it. And as you can see, it did indeed access those variables as expected. So that's a really powerful way of using LHTML inside of a custom module to kind of integrate everything and pull parameters. As our last example, we're going to look at the redacted LHTML parameter, or element, I should say. So this is just some lipsun, and here we have a tag that's redacted, and what that does is redacts it from the page. So here's the results, and you can see that the content that we had applied that tag around has been indeed redacted. Unlike something that was done on the front end, as you can see, there's no way that our users are going to be able to find out what that content was originally, because it's indeed a block character. And that will get sent to the end user because it's processed on the server. So that's a really powerful feature to just redact content. But what makes that really neat is how easy it was to make. So it's just a little thing that looks for characters and replaces it. And that kind of shows you how easy it is to create your own LHTML elements. Yeah, I hope this was helpful.